Can you imagine finding out your entire family, the people you trusted most in the world, have been systematically stealing from you for years? Running a secret scam right under your nose. I mean, really, truly imagine the betrayal, the gut-wrenching realization that every kind word, every shared meal, every family gathering was built on a foundation of lies and theft. And then, imagine being the one to tear it all down, to expose their dark secret to the world, knowing it would shatter everything. Was I wrong for what I did? Tell me honestly if you would have done the same thing. I still replay it all in my head, every single detail, every moment that led to me becoming the family pariah, the whistleblower, the one who couldn't just let it go. It all started so innocently, or so I thought at the time. My name is Alex, and for as long as I can remember, my family has been, well, tight-knit is one way to put it. Enmeshed is probably more accurate. My parents, my older sister Sarah, my younger brother Mark, and my grandparents lived within a 10-mile radius of each other. Family dinners were a sacred institution. Sunday lunches were mandatory, and holidays were always a grand, chaotic affair at my grandparents' sprawling old house. We were, on the surface, the picture of a loving, supportive unit. My parents, particularly my dad, always had a knack for business. He started a small, local contracting company when I was a kid, and it grew steadily. He was the kind of guy who knew everyone, who could talk his way into or out of anything. My mom handled the books, always meticulously organized, or so I thought. Sarah, my older sister, was always the golden child, academically brilliant and effortlessly charming. Mark, my younger brother, was the creative one, a talented artist who never quite fit into the business-minded mold of the rest of us. And then there was me, somewhere in the middle, trying to find my place. When I graduated from college with a business degree, it was almost a given that I'd join the family company. It was what everyone expected. Dad offered me a position in project management, a respectable entry-level role. I was excited, genuinely thrilled to be contributing to something my father had built. I worked hard, put in long hours, and tried to learn everything I could. I thought I was part of a team, a legacy. For the first few years, things seemed fine. The company was doing well. Dad often talked about how we were a family working together, building something for our future. He'd pat me on the back, tell me how proud he was. Mom would beam, and Sarah, who had gone into corporate finance, would occasionally offer advice, though she was mostly focused on her own successful career. Mark, bless his heart, tried his hand at a few creative ventures that never quite took off, but he was always at family dinners, always part of the unit. The first red flag, subtle as it was, popped up around my third year with the company. I was reviewing some old invoices for a large municipal project we'd completed years ago, trying to understand a particular cost overrun for a current bid. As I dug through the archived files, I noticed something odd. A series of payments to a vendor I didn't recognize, for materials that didn't seem to match the project specifications. The amounts were relatively small individually, but they added up. I brought it to my dad's attention. He brushed it off. Oh, that old project. Yeah, we used a specialty supplier for some bespoke parts. Nothing to worry about, son. His dismissive tone, a little too quick, lodged itself in my mind, but I let it go. He was the boss, he knew better. Then came the family investments. My dad started talking about diversifying, putting some of the company's profits into various ventures. He encouraged us, his children, to invest our savings alongside the company. He pitched it as a way for us to build wealth together, a truly shared future. Sarah, ever the shrewd investor, seemed to be thriving. She'd occasionally mention her returns, which always sounded impressively high. Mark, with less disposable income, put in what he could, trusting our dad implicitly. I too invested a significant portion of my savings, eager to be part of this collective financial success. Dad handled all the paperwork, all the transactions. We just had to give him our money, and he'd take care of the rest. He'd present us with official-looking statements, usually printed on generic paper, showing steady, impressive growth. We discussed them over dinner, a warm glow of shared prosperity filling the room. It felt good, like we were all moving forward together. A few more years passed. I was promoted, taking on more responsibility. I started interacting more directly with clients, suppliers, and our accounting firms. This is where the cracks really began to show. Our accounting firm, a reputable local outfit, occasionally raised questions about certain expenses or discrepancies in our internal ledgers. My mom, who oversaw the company's finances, would always handle these inquiries, usually with a terse phone call and a quick resolution. She'd assure me it was just routine accounting stuff, nothing I needed to worry about. But the sheer frequency of these routine issues began to bother me. I started paying closer attention. I'd casually ask my mom about specific vendor names and specific transactions. Her answers were often vague, sometimes contradictory. It felt like she was always on edge when I brought up finances. And then there was Sarah. She moved into a stunning new house, bought a luxury car, and took lavish vacations. She always attributed it to her corporate success and her smart investments with Dad. Mark, however, seemed to be struggling a bit. His artistic endeavors weren't generating much income, and he often talked about feeling financially stretched. Despite his own investments with Dad, he never seemed to get the same impressive returns Sarah bragged about. I tried to talk to him about it, but he just shrugged, saying, "Dad knows what he's doing." Maybe Sarah just got luckier with her timing. The real unraveling began with a client who defaulted on a large payment. This put a significant strain on the company's cash flow. I was tasked with trying to recover the funds, which meant going through every single financial record related to that project. I spent weeks in my office, poring over documents, comparing invoices to bank statements, cross-referencing everything. That's when I found it. Not just one anomaly, but a pattern. A sophisticated, elaborate pattern. There were multiple shell companies, registered to various P.O. boxes and obscure addresses, all of them receiving substantial payments from our company. These payments were supposedly for materials, consulting fees, or subcontracting work. But when I tried to verify the services, I found no evidence they had ever been performed. The addresses were either vacant lots, abandoned buildings, or just mail drop services. The scale of it was staggering. Tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, disappearing into these phantom companies. My blood ran cold as I realized what this meant. This wasn't just mismanagement, it was outright fraud. And the money wasn't going to some faceless criminals. It was being funneled. But to whom? I started to follow the money trail. It led to a series of private bank accounts. Accounts that were not in the company's names, but in the names of individuals. Individuals I knew very well, my parents, my sister, even in a few smaller instances my brother. My world spun. It was a complete gut punch. My family. My own flesh and blood. They weren't just stealing from the company, they were stealing from me. My salary was being siphoned off through inflated project costs, distance. The family investments that were supposed to be growing were a sham. The statements my dad provided were meticulously forged. The money I had entrusted to them, the money I had worked so hard for, was being redirected into their pockets, while I received a carefully constructed illusion of growth. The truth hit me like a physical blow. The lavish lifestyle my parents enjoyed, the expensive gifts, the trips, Sarah's new house and car, it all made sickening sense now. They weren't just financially comfortable, they were living off stolen money, money that, in part, was rightfully mine. I locked myself in my office that night, the weight of the discovery pressing down on me. I felt sick to my stomach, petrarious. But beneath all of that, a profound sadness. This wasn't some stranger, some faceless corporation. This was my family, the people who raised me, who hugged me, who told me they loved me. How could they do this? How could they look me in the eyes, day after day, and perpetrate such a cruel deception? I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. My mind raced, trying to find an explanation, a way to rationalize it, to make it less awful. But there was no rationalization. It was a calculated, long-term scheme of theft. The next few days were a blur. I pretended everything was normal at work, at family dinners, but inside I was a coiled spring. I felt like I was wearing a mask, smiling and nodding while my entire world had crumbled. I knew I couldn't just ignore it. I couldn't just walk away and let them continue. This wasn't just about my money, it was about integrity, about right and wrong, distance. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have confronted them privately? Would you have gathered more evidence? Would you have gone straight to the authorities, knowing the devastation it would cause? Distance. What would your first move have been? Because honestly, I wrestled with it for days. The thought of confronting them filled me with dread. What would they say? How would they react? Would they deny it? Would they turn on me? But the thought of letting it continue, of being complicit in their lies, was even worse. I couldn't live with myself. I decided I needed undeniable proof, something that couldn't be explained away. I spent another 2 weeks working in secret, meticulously gathering every scrap of evidence. I made copies of every suspicious invoice, every bank statement, every forged investment document. I cross-referenced the shell company registrations, tracing them back to my family members. I even found digital footprints, emails between my parents discussing the allocations and adjustments to the accounts. It was all there, laid out in painstaking detail, a mountain of irrefutable proof. I also decided I needed an ally, someone outside the immediate family, someone I could trust. My aunt, my mom's older sister, had always been a moral compass in our family. She was tough but fair, and had a fierce sense of justice. I drove to her house one evening, the thick file of documents heavy on the passenger seat. Sitting in her living room, I laid it all out. As I explained everything, showing her the proof, her face drained of color. She looked at me, then at the documents, then back at me, tears welling in her eyes. "Alex," she whispered, this is unbelievable." She was shocked, heartbroken, but she didn't doubt me. She saw the evidence. She advised me not to confront them alone, but to go to the police. "This isn't just a family matter, honey," she said. "This is a crime, a serious crime. And if you confront them, they'll just try to cover it up, or worse, try to turn it back on you." Her words solidified my resolve. Distance. Going to the authorities meant tearing the family apart, exposing them to public shame, and potentially sending them to jail. It was a terrifying prospect. But what was the alternative? To be an accomplice? To let them continue to steal, potentially from others? No, I couldn't. I made the call. I contacted a lawyer first, Distance, explaining the situation and presenting the evidence. He was stunned by the meticulousness of the fraud and the sheer volume of proof. He advised me on how to proceed, and together we approached the authorities. The investigation began quietly. I cooperated fully, providing all the evidence I had compiled. It was a tense, agonizing period. Every family dinner felt like a scene from a movie, where I was playing a part, knowing the axe was about to fall. I watched my parents laugh, my sister brag about her latest purchase, my brother talk about his struggles, and I felt a cold detachment. They were still my family, but they were also criminals, and they had betrayed me in the most profound way. The day the police showed up at my parents' house, it was like an earthquake. I wasn't there, but my aunt called me, distraught, telling me what was happening. My parents were arrested on charges of fraud and embezzlement. The company's assets were frozen. The news spread like wildfire through our small community. Relatives, friends, clients, everyone was talking. It was a scandal of epic proportions. Then came the revelation about Sarah and Mark's involvement. While my parents were the masterminds, Sarah had actively participated. Not just in receiving stolen funds, but also in creating some of the fake documentation. Mark's involvement was more complicated. He had unknowingly received some investments that were part of the scam, but he wasn't aware of the fraudulent nature of the source. He was as much a victim as I was, just on a different scale. The aftermath was brutal. My parents and Sarah tried to deny everything, claiming I was fabricating evidence, that I was trying to destroy the family. They painted me as the villain, the greedy one, the one who couldn't be trusted. My relatives were divided. Some sided with my parents, believing their denials, unable to fathom such treachery. Others, like my aunt, stood by me, horrified by the truth. My brother Mark was utterly devastated. He confronted my parents, demanding answers. And when the full extent of their deception was revealed, he broke down. He was angry, hurt, and felt deeply betrayed. He's still trying to come to terms with it, and we've been leaning on each other through this nightmare. The company, the legacy my dad had built, was gone. It was dissolved. Its assets ceased to repay the defrauded clients and investors. My parents and Sarah faced serious legal consequences. My dad received a substantial prison sentence, and my mom and Sarah also served time, though less than him, due to varying degrees of involvement. It's been years now since the initial arrests, and the dust has somewhat settled, but the scars remain. My relationship with my parents and Sarah is, understandably, non-existent. The family, as I knew it, is shattered beyond repair. It's a strange, bittersweet freedom. I lost my family, but I gained my integrity back. I stood up for what was right, even when it meant tearing down everything I thought I knew. I rebuilt my life from scratch, starting a new career in a different city, far away from the gossip and the painful memories. I've learned that sometimes the people closest to you can be the most dangerous. That trust is something earned, not given blindly, and that doing the right thing, no matter how hard, is always worth it in the end. I still sometimes question if there was another way, a less destructive path. But then I remember the cold, calculated betrayal, the years of lies, and I know I did what I had to do. So what do you think? Was I wrong? Or would you have done the same? Like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.